going ahead and suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. You know, why not? Because they defrauded the public, and they've admitted it. And their top echelon, they actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical. And they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up.
But tonight you are saying to our viewers that you will go forward and file a defamation lawsuit against the BBC.
Well, I think I have an obligation to do it because you can't allow people to do that.
U.S. President Donald Trump said that he has an obligation to sue the BBC for misrepresenting his words before January 6. In a Fox News interview, Trump accused the broadcaster of editing his 2021 speech to make him appear to incite violence.
Are you going ahead and suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. You know, why not? Because they defrauded the public, and they've admitted it. And their top echelon,
Director General and the CEO,
this
both
is
resigned.
Within one of our great allies. You know, this is supposedly.
Spend more time talking.
They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical. And they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up. But it was very dishonest, and the head man quit, and a lot of the other people
We're actually
quit.
going to. But tonight you are saying to our viewers that you will go forward and file a defamation lawsuit against the BBC.
Well, I think I have an obligation to do it because you can't allow people to do that.
Does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well,
when you and I were
I'll give you an example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this.
The BBC is now facing its biggest crisis in decades, with top officials Tim Davie and Deborah Turness stepping down. Their resignations follow mounting criticism over bias, editorial standards, and the handling of Trump's remarks. Meanwhile, British Culture Minister Lisa Nandy told Parliament that the network must take transparent action to rebuild trust.
Publish a green paper and launch a public consultation shortly, and I will set out more detail to the House. The House will know that yesterday the chair of the BBC, Shah, wrote to the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee. He accepted there had been editorial failings and committed to a number of steps in response. Dr. Shah believes that our national broadcaster, which remains one of the most trusted sources of news in our country, has a responsibility to uphold the highest standards. I agree. Over the past week, I've been in regular contact with him and his team to ensure that where these standards have not been met, firm, swift and transparent action follows. I welcome the steps that have already been set out, and I will keep the House updated as the BBC leadership grips these issues.
Madam Deputy Speaker, whatever the case with Donald Trump, who has...
The concerns that have been raised are serious in and of themselves, but some in this House have gone even further, suggesting that the BBC is institutionally biased. It should not be lost on us that the BBC has faced criticism from all sides for its coverage of highly contentious and contested issues.
Secretary of State.
Can I thank the Honourable Lady for her... There is a fundamental difference between raising serious concerns over editorial failings and members of this House launching a sustained attack on the institution itself.
Spokesperson Anna Sabine. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
At a time when the lines are being dangerously blurred between fact and opinion, news and polemic, the BBC stands apart. It is a light on the hill for people here and across the world. Trusted news and high-quality programming is essential to our democratic and cultural life. And the Honourable Lady, it's difficult to hear her over the noise, but the BBC is facing challenges, some of its own making, but it is doing so in the context of a revolution in the media landscape that has challenged all broadcasters and polarised and fragmented our national debate. It is time to grip this with a clarity of vision and purpose that secures the BBC's future.
My right honourable friend for her leadership on this and wholeheartedly welcome her words that...
As we write the next chapter of an institution that has stood at the centre of British public life for a century, our overarching goal is simple: to ensure the BBC can renew its mission for the modern age and continue to inform, educate and entertain, not just for the coming decade, but well into the next century. I commend this statement to the House.
Earlier, BBC admitted errors in a panorama documentary that spliced parts of Trump's Capitol speech out of context. BBC Chairman Shah acknowledged failings, pledging to restore integrity and public confidence in the broadcaster. Outgoing Director General Tim Davie has spoken publicly for the first time since resigning. Davie said he is very proud of the BBC's journalism and the work of its reporters. On the other hand, outgoing news CEO Deborah Turness said that the Trump edit controversy had reached a point where it was damaging the institution she loved. She said leaders in public life must be accountable, which is why she decided to resign. Turness also pushed back on claims that BBC News is institutionally biased, calling them absolutely wrong.
The apologizing is for the way the team edited President Trump's speech to his supporters on January the 6th. It was public, we discussed it, and indeed the reservations and there were some people on the board who felt very strongly it was wrong, others defended it. It was discussed at Panorama, so they knew about that. But I think the point I'm making is, in hindsight, we should have acted earlier and taken a more formal position on it, which we've done more recently. Part of the problem is the way it was edited. Yeah. But what was the consequence of that? I think we just need to go into a bit more detail, which is what we finally did, which was the impression it left on the British audience, as opposed to the intention of the programme, which was to give the Panorama, the British audience, some understanding of how President Trump's supporters were reading it. Now, that's quite a complicated set of thoughts, and we need to get that right. Let's be clear about the role of the board. We are a non-executive board, 10 of us are non-execs, 4 execs. The job of the board is to review BBC output and to maintain and to represent the public interest. It is not our job to determine who or who should not be the Director of News. That is the job of the Director General. It is for him to say and for him to determine. And that's the only position I take and I insist that the board takes. I did not want to lose Tim Davie. I think Tim Davie has been an outstanding Director General, and may I say, nor did any member of the board. We were upset by the decision. I do understand it at a very human level. Tim has gone through a lot of attacks. It's been relentless. It's also a very, very difficult job. We do take it really seriously. I mean, there are real issues here. They're over a 3-year period. And just let me say, the BBC in those 3 years has produced hundreds and hundreds of hours of outstanding journalism on television, on audio, on online. We have, and we do a great job there. But inevitably, we make mistakes. And what he's identified are mistakes, either individual ones or ones that point to underlying problems, which we accept. But the statistics say that the British people trust BBC News more than anything else. If there was this consistent institutional bias, do you think we'd have those figures? We wouldn't. So I don't think that's right. That's not to say that there aren't real problems, real issues, both underlying and specific. I don't think there's a systemic bias in anti-Israel. I mean, there are loads of arguments that suggest almost the opposite, you know. I think that we have issues, I've talked about underlying problems, and we've made changes in leadership to try and deal with that. But I think, you know, it's worth talking about the scale of the BBC and how much it does and how much excellent, impartial journalism it does.
Morning, everyone. Good morning. Just want to say a couple of things. I'm here to lead and support the BBC. I'm very, very proud of our journalists in this building. They're doing work I think that's incredibly important. I want to thank every one of them. They're doing a wonderful job. Also, everyone across the BBC doing their thing for the UK. And personally, I'm here to lead and support them. The BBC's going to be thriving, and I support every one of the team. I'm very proud of them. Thank you very much, everyone. Great to see you.
Deborah, have you felt BBC? I would like to say it has been the privilege of my career to serve as the CEO of BBC News and to work with our brilliant team of journalists. I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stopped with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider.
Why did you fail to deal with the mistakes that were made?
And see my teams. Thank you so much.
Right, we're going in now. Do you think that the journalists are corrupt like President Trump says? Do you think the journalists
Of course our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality, and I will stand by their journalism.
Is there institutional bias at the BBC?
There is no institutional bias. Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
But why weren't the mistakes dealt with on Trump, on anti-Semitism, on women's rights?
I'm sure that story will emerge, but for now I'm going to go in and see our team.
Do you think the board acted against you? Do you think the board acted against you?
This way, Deborah.